Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pianolin TV. My name is Alex,
I'm Jeremy.
and this is an episode for Self-Awareness for Strong Leadership. Now, we have a very special guest today. I've known her for many, many years, and coincidentally, I only met her when I was doing my Master of Music piano auditions at Michigan University, and that's where I met Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. Hi,
It's so great. It's so great to see you and have you on this podcast. Thank you for being a guest here. Now, you have a long history of piano performance, but also piano pedagogy. You've went through a lot. Rachel here has earned her Master of Music in Piano Performance and Pedagogy and her Bachelor of Music degree in Piano Performance at the University of Michigan. And currently she's pursuing her doctorate at IU Jacobs School of Music and Piano Performance, studying under Roberto Plano. And she's been all over the place. She was born in New York, and she received a worldwide musical education in Washington, D.C., Taipei, and Los Angeles. And she has studied, with many, many renowned teachers, and she was a recipient of From the Top of the Gent Cook Scholarship Foundation Scholarship. And currently she is the president of an organization. I'll leave it to you, Rachel.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. I guess this podcast, I wanted to dive into, a conversation about what it means to have self-awareness. And I think just being really self-aware helps you become a strong leader. And just through this whole year of leading MTNA chapter at IU, as the president, I learned a lot. And through the other years, last year was vice president, and also just comparing the two chapters from Michigan and IU, I learned a lot. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's dive right in. And since you are the president, there's a lot of leadership going on in the organization. And what gave you that opportunity, or I guess, should I say, inspired you to lead?
Yeah, so I originally at Michigan, the chapter there, the MTNA chapter there was pretty long, like it's been there for a while. And when I moved to IU and just started my doctorate at IU, I knew that there was not a chapter, MTNA chapter here, which was like really surprising for me, just because considering there's so many pianists here. And so me and a few friends, actually a senior of mine, wanted to start a chapter here. And so she did all of the hard work of, starting a chapter. And so she asked me and a few other people to start it. And she left kind of halfway during the first semester for her job because she was a fifth, sixth year doctorate student at that time last year. And so I took on the role, not just vice president, but also president. Um, and I wanted to, my whole goal for this organization was to, have all of the musicians come together to have a safe space. And I think, like IU is such a great performance school. I do think that we are one day going to be educators. And just having that community is important for me, at least. And so I thought, MTA is great resource, and there's also like competitions. You guys know the MTA competition. And so our chapter last year was mainly doing events, um, having guest artists come in to talk to us about, um, there's more than just being a performer. You could be a pedagogue, you can be an educator, you can do arts admin, administration things. You can be a collaborator, like just different things within, the music field. So that was our primary goal. And also last year, um, when I was vice, I did partnerships with other collegiate chapters. So I just thought, um, not only reaching out to just the school itself, I thought it was important to also reach out to other collegiate chapters, at Michigan. It could be, at other schools like BYU, they have a really strong chapter, or Cincinnati has a really, really strong chapter as well. So since I was there at Michigan for 6 years, I reached out to my chapter there and asked if they wanted to do a partnership. And so I created this partnership. It's a 6-week program where students from IU would be paired up with students at Michigan, and they would have 30 minutes to an hour of just chatting, like having a friend at a different school, knowing their perspective of what they're doing, what their curriculum is like, what is their class piano like, and the administration part. So I just thought that was important, because like I was very like grateful that I also got that throughout my undergrad and master's. So I wanted to create that for the students at IU. So we did that for the first year of our collegiate chapter, and then COVID hit. So then it kind of everything just kind of stopped. And so this year, when I was president, it was actually quite a challenge, because everything was Zoom. And so I was thinking, as performers, this time is so hard because we don't get opportunities to perform to a live audience. Everything at Jacobs was stopped. There was no public performances. So then I took advantage of the weather, and just created an outdoor series of performances for pianists. And of course, that involved finding a venue, getting an instrument, and then talking to piano faculty about making the series happen. So we named it Keys to the Future. So that was the series that we did. And my other mission, our mission for our chapter, was to also have people come together, so to connect. So we made pedagogy Saturday, to have people talk about teaching their struggles through Zoom and Zoom fatigue. And then the other mission was to still continue, just branching out to different aspects of what being a musician is. So we had different workshops, like professional development workshop, where thankfully it's through Zoom, so we could invite a lot of guest artists to talk to us. And then the lunch break series, which is mainly professors from our school, just to talk to us. What is it like to be collaborator? What is it like to be a leader, in maybe as a dean or as a chair? Like, what if you got that job? How would you lead? Or we had a workshop about just like, what do you do after you graduate? So just like different things. My main goal, like this year, I never really thought of myself as like president, um, of that kind of leadership. I always believe in like servant leadership. So it's like you're serving whoever's in your community, and just kind of, because you have this organization, you can do more. So it's like the more people is in it, the more you can do for them. So it's that kind of mentality. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of information to take in,
Sorry. It's like,
but it's amazing what you've done in your journey and helping others, connecting to others. That's a beautiful thing, especially during the pandemic. It's a lot of musicians are isolated. Either they had to go home to their parents if they're based in the United States, or they went back to their own country. There's no point of living near campus if campus activities are closed and public performances are closed. All those things were a challenge for all of us, and we have to find ways to actually try to keep us alive through music. And the things that you just mentioned, to me in Germany here, are very quite valuable. And I actually attended some of your sessions, and it's really cool. It's The pandemic has taught us, just because they can knock us down doesn't mean that we'll be knocked down forever. We have to find ways to be optimistic and try to do something while the negativity is spread around us. But
mm,
I see that, connecting musicians from other schools, inspiring the young generation to be with one another despite the difficult times. I
mm,
think that you're a really good, leader, an example of a good leader. And you didn't see yourself as president of this organization, which proves that you have that natural energy coming and seeing as a fit to fill in the gaps where musicians really needed it.
mm. Yeah, no, thank you so much for saying that. I think like this year I've also made like a lot of mistakes. Um, just like through my like position, um, as like a board member. Just I learned like what active listening is, um, to like listen, take in, but not really put you in the conversation, like how to negotiate, different opinions, different values. Because like, yeah, like I worked with, like all my board members are great, and like I think without a good team, you really can't make things work. And so sometimes there are conflicts, and how do you kind of, um, still say what you want, hear what they want without getting an argument. So like, I think for me, I learned a lot about, knowing who you are. So like knowing who you are, what you value, and then picking who you want to be on your team. Because like I'm not perfect. And so I have a lot of things that I lack, and I see great, strengths in other of my board members. And so it's like I can't take all of the responsibility, because then it's just like it's just too much. It's impossible. So then it's like, okay, like as a leader of this organization, I have a vision. I kind of want to know this is what I want, but also I see strengths in other people. And so like being able to just come together and like fit the puzzle was like important. So there was a few mistakes that I made about like communication, yeah, and stuff like that.
That's all fine and natural. We're human beings, and the best teacher really is living through your experiences, right? Once you experience something and it's not good, then you know not to do it. So it's all about life and growing up, it pertains to everything, not just, music.
Mm-hmm.
Anything in life, any major field of career, it's it takes a while sometimes to find the right partner, to find the right coworker. Relationships, whether it's work or dating, family, they all take time to build, and sometimes it's really hard to find the
Mm-hmm.
right people.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, you're one of them. For many years, we haven't really, how should I say, see each other in person for
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say like if you put it in consecutive days. I think it's maybe a week in max out of how many years we've known each other. And Jeremy here also, I've only known for 2 years, but the instant connection when I play with him,
Mm-hmm.
that's not very um, common. Jeremy, when I heard him for the first time when he was playing his violin, I could tell he has natural talent. And when we
Mm-hmm.
rehearsed together for concerts, it took minimal effort. We didn't really argue. We just sit here, there, and our rehearsal, it usually just lasts half an hour to 45 minutes, not the normal 1 hour. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all about um, timing, and also it's just the chemistry between at least two people and more.
Mm-hmm. It's
Right.
interesting. Oh yeah,
No,
sorry,
no,
go
no,
ahead.
but I think it's great what you're doing because a lot of those kind of groups,
Mm-hmm.
organization, a lot of the time the people in the top they don't have the experience that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you might have, and so
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what is best for the students to do, what the
Yeah,
people need to have. And even in conservatory sometimes the dean doesn't even play music.
yeah.
And so I think it's great that someone like you is at the top of an organization like this.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to another point. When I was talking with my friend, a colleague in the university,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, Alex, I feel like I can relate so many troublesome things to you than my teacher. And I asked him why. He said,
Mm-hmm.
I think because age is one factor, but also I guess we are at the similar level of studying. So like each generation has their own pros and cons, and sometimes being in the same generation and dealing with the people in the same generation is easier than talking to someone else in a different generation. But it all depends on what your experience is. If you're not very experienced in a different, like dealing with another generation of people, then you may face that trouble. But since that we're growing up, and if we're dealing with the same people in our generation, it's that a lot easier to um, find out what they're thinking, what their mentality is, what your experience is similar to theirs. And I think, Rachel, because you're able to, you know, comprehend all of that, you're able to relate them more to the students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's interesting how you talk about just like the instant connection um with you and Jeremy, or like you with your friend that you were talking about. Like I've been thinking a lot about that just like throughout this year. It's like how come it's easier for me to connect with certain people, and then less easier for me to connect with certain people. And then I think, I don't know, I've been like reading a lot, like listening to a lot of like podcasts, and I don't know if you guys know Brene Brown, much about her.
Renee Brown sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. So she did this whole like TED talk on the power of like vulnerability. Um and she says it's like she basically does research. She did research about this and saying that um, in order to have connection, you have to have vulnerability. And that's really easy to say. But what's the opposite of vulnerability is control, is like fear of what other people might think of you. And also just, you know, like, like shame kind of thing. And that takes away from also like being vulnerable and like being able to connect. And so it's like, in order to connect and have like joy and be happy, you have to like be vulnerable. And I think as like someone like you guys, like who's doing a podcast, you know, you're starting something new, or being like a leadership role, or in just starting something, and when you have other people and other ideas, it's hard to be like vulnerable with each other, and or just like trying to build connections, like how to be like your true self, and still have that. Yeah, so it's interesting how you talked about connection. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that I think that really goes into being your own leader. You know, like we're in control of our lives for the most part. I mean, there's circumstances where you can't completely control everything,
Mm-hmm.
but no one can do things for you. If you're gonna wanting to become a pianist or a violinist, you your parents or family can pay all the money they can to get you in a conservatory, but and get you a great instrument and books. But if you're not going to put an effort into practice, you're not going to get it.
Right. Right.
So it's true, and also in human nature, it's we do have this fear, right, in ourselves. It's also like our self-esteem, and many
Right.
people face low self-esteem
Right.
because when they are vulnerable, they are really vulnerable. It's like they've been attacked and been knocked down on the ground and they can't get
Mhm.
up. And they can't find like a leverage to hang on to once they've been hit. So I know many people that I've talked to. I've been a resident assistant dealing with younger undergrads, and them telling me and asking me, "Oh, how do I do this? Or what should I do?" Because they're scared. They have never experienced things before.
Right.
And as I got older, I got to be more of a risk taker, because I realized if I don't do it, I don't know what the results are. So it's better doing something than just being afraid. And if you are afraid, latch on to a friend or family member and do it
Yeah.
together, right? It's always better when you have someone there to support you and discuss about your ideas. So
Mhm.
when I'm doing this podcast, I didn't want to do it alone because I'm still learning and doing this, and it improves every time. The
Mhm.
content, the guests, the way that where we're doing things is a lot better. And with Jeremy, I always have good ideas with him. So
Mhm.
latching on to Jeremy is he's my support for this podcast.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
so in terms of like leadership, um, there may be people like you didn't imagine yourself to be president of this organization.
Mm-mm.
How would you suggest to others who you know maybe got inspired by listening to you but don't know where to start?
I think um I think it's important to know, like I like what you said, to like know who you are, like be your own leader. So for me, I think if I have to like break it down, it would be like, what is your mission? Like maybe thinking, why are you doing this? Like, who are you? It doesn't even need to be like a dream. It's like, what you have to go dive deep and be like, okay, in 8 words, what is it that you want to do um with your life? Do you want to help people? That could be something. Do you want to give, like be a giver? Or do you want to um like just play music for people? So what is it that drives you? So you have to know. So I think um for me, being in any of these positions, I think you need to really know, you need to have a drive. You need to know who you are, what you want to do, and have a plan, have like a vision, but then you need to actually do it. So like these are all pretty, right? Like, you could dream, you could like do all that, but you actually need to have a really solid goal and you need to actually act on it. And so I guess like for those who are listening, if you know that you want to give, you know that you want to, like connect, don't be afraid to just like try it out. And like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. I like connecting with people. I like to get to know like what everyone would want and what I can give to them. And I go out there and create those connections. But I would say those connections are real, they're not fake. And I actually have a really good time getting to know each person that I meet, like guest speakers or some of my peers that I'm like, oh, like I'm not just connecting with them on a surface level, but it's like I really want to get to know who you are. And that goes in with, you know, being vulnerable and like being open, and having those honest conversations. And again, being like your truest self. But that's hard. But it's like, I'm going to be the truest self. If you don't appreciate it, then you don't appreciate it. But I will be who I am because that attracts um, people who are going to be real with you. Yeah. So I think just be yourself, and don't be afraid to, like what Alex, you were saying, just go ahead and do it. Like don't let the what if, because you would never know. Yeah.
I think it's good to try everything that you can try, if it exists, because you never know what it can do for you. And then
Yeah.
sometimes you don't expect anything from it, but you try it and then it might lead to something else. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then because of that, your whole career can change too.
Right.
And maybe even the way you think. So,
Yeah. And
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
go,
Sorry.
Jeremy actually here is a great example of that because um, he didn't start out in music and for
Mm.
college. You did something else, right, Jeremy?
right, I started in the regular arts and science
Okay.
Rutgers. And then after 2 years or so, I felt maybe I still want to do music.
Mm.
So I switched over to the music school, and then now I have I have career both in music and in something else. So
Mm.
I mean, you never know what's gonna happen, until
Right.
you. I didn't even expect to be like this,
Yeah.
like what I'm doing now, when I was
Mhm.
maybe even 2 years ago. So you just got to try.
Yeah, no, I love that because like we really don't know what our life will be. So it's like letting go of that control and just it happens. Like everything happens. Like I'm sure a lot of our teachers didn't imagine that they would be where they are now, like maybe teaching. Maybe they wanted some different kind of career, or you know, um someone else, like our parents probably didn't imagine that their life would be this way, or they had a plan, but usually the plan kind of falls through and you never know like what would happen. Yeah.
Well, Jeremy here, right?
Right.
I just saw him maybe, I don't know,
Like
recently.
2 days ago? No, yesterday. Yesterday.
We just were reading through some violin music, and I could tell he was having a blast because he doesn't have really anyone to accompany him. But I had a blast too. It's really cool doing something, right? He just threw like violin music at me that I never played before. Maybe I've heard,
Mm.
but it gave me that energy of like thrill,
Mm.
because it's been a while since I collaborated with anyone. But doing that, I didn't regard it as work because
Yeah.
pre COVID, every time I rehearse with someone, I kind of regarded it as work. But now that because of COVID, the mentality has changed. The opportunity to work with another musician is not so working anymore. It's more of like
Mhm.
enjoying yourself and enjoying the company of another musician and collaborating. But either way, I think for Jeremy, I think we are two are a special case. I don't think I would ever think I'm in the working mode with this guy.
But yeah, only when we have concerts.
Concerts, really? I thought you enjoy concerts too.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I guess the rehearsal didn't feel like work, but the concert it kind of felt like work, especially the talking part.
Well, let's get back on the topic. And I know that Rachel, you wanted to talk about persuasion, right? With being a leader, having the team members right under your direction. But as you said, you have to find the right people to work with. But there's always gonna be people that want to have different ideas. And let's say like you present like an idea to your board members and it's half and half agrees, half disagrees. So what do you do in that situation, and how would you handle or persuade them that your idea is worth a try?
Yeah, so what I learned this year is that no is not an end. No is kind of the beginning, because that means that they feel comfortable enough to say no to you. And that no probably means I'm not ready yet, or I'm still thinking about it, or I don't know enough. So when someone says no, for me, that gives me incentive to um, be like, okay, I hear you, and I'm gonna try to. I don't want to say persuade, because persuasion could sound manipulative a little bit in some ways, but in personal life especially. But I think when it comes to like a leadership role, like it's more incentive for me to be like, okay, I'm going to try to understand you. When someone says no, then I'll be like, can you tell me, can you let me understand why you feel this way? And then allowing them to give me an idea of, okay, why did I say no? And then for me to be like, okay, I see that, and I'm going to try to figure out how to present this to you in a different way. Or it's actually for me to be like, okay, what I'm presenting has flaws, and what can I do to also accommodate that? So there's a lot of instances where there was events or an idea that I presented to my board members this year, not to go into like too much detail, that there was a lot of conflict. There was immediately like, no, I don't like this. And to me, I think when I first heard that ever, I was really hurt. And the reason why I was hurt is because usually if you feel so strongly about that, means you're passionate about it and that you really care. And so you don't want to get turned down. But then, you have to be like, okay, this is not a personal attack. This is because they don't know enough about it. And so I went in to understand how they felt, and then went to what I was thinking, and then try to figure out and then present to them. There's also another scenario where, the everyone is kind of in chaos mode and they are all just kind of jumping different things. And of course, I want to be the most fair and be like, okay, everyone agree, but that's not always going to be the case. That's like, if it happens, then great. If it doesn't, it's usually not that way. And therefore, like, as the president, you have to be like, okay, guys, we have to just vote. Like, sorry, democracy wins on this one. And you can't be like, you can't be like trying to please everything, because it's impossible. And I think I'm a pretty like people pleaser at times in like my personal life. But like when it comes to leadership roles, you actually need to take on the leadership and be like, okay, no, like this is what it should be. And I hear everyone, but we need to make a decision and just cut it through. So just being really certain that way. Yeah.
Wow, that's actually very true with so many circumstances, right? And I think most people, when they do things, they kind of think for themselves. Like it's not a bad thing, right? Because like as you said, having an idea is really solely on yourself, what your dream is or your passion goal is, right? And you view it in that direction. However, the other people are not going to do that because maybe it's not their goal, their dream. So pushing, I'm not saying pushing your ideas, sharing your ideas to someone else can be troublesome because you two are in a different position. Let's just bring it to two people. When there's two people with different life experiences, they're not going to go head and head with the same ideas. And being the leader, sometimes you want to step into their shoes and would say, okay, why did they say no? Is it on me or is it based on my idea? And as you say, you're correct. On certain things, they don't understand or they don't know the path you're going. I've done the same thing with my own concert series at my church. And, you know, classical music is at my church is kind of like non-existent when I got in there. And when I play classical music, the congregation were so appreciative. They never really got a chance to hear classical music. And, you know, I talked to the pastor, I talked to the consistory. I said, this church really needs at least a baby grand acoustic piano. I can't play on a digital piano, being the, you know, pianist I am. I can't get the certain sound I want. Now for the people there, it doesn't really matter because they probably don't know the difference because they're not trained. And you can't blame them, right? Because if they haven't experienced an acoustic piano and they've been hearing the electric piano for so many years in that church, they're gonna get used to it. So I had to go out of my way and, you know, tell the pastor why an acoustic piano is a good investment for the church. And it took some how should I say, persuasion, even though you don't want to use that term. But I'm pretty much of like persistent. If I want to get something done, I'm going to get it. And then I usually work with, how should I say, one of the roles, the people who are more on the top, right? Who's in charge of the decisions, or at least a board member of the decision making. And that's a good thing if you want to be a good leader within your field, is to usually try to be friendly and network with the people in the top field, because in that way you can get leverage into getting what you would like to do. And the concert series also for classical music, I wanted to do this as support for musicians who were affected by the pandemic. And there were all of these administration questions thrown at me, which I wasn't thinking about because I'm not I wouldn't consider myself as part of an administration role. Much more of a really a musician performer. So all of those things thrown at me, I had to configure, oh, okay, these people are right. I've never been in this field, but now I understand why they're concerned and all of that. So it is all of an experience being a leader. And as you said, if they say no, it's not because it's not on you. It's really probably the idea they don't understand completely. And it's your job to make it clearer for them. And then they can see that tunnel to your vision.
Right. No, that is totally true. That reminds me of the outdoor concert series that I that we started. And it's interesting to hear it from, you know, a performer side, because I was basically doing the administration side. And so we had a keyboard, and the people that agreed to or signed up for the concert series was very hyped and was like, I'm so excited, I get to perform after a few months. But when they got to the venue and they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm playing on a keyboard, like what is this? And as pianists, I think we're very spoiled. Like, you know, being in a hall, we never play outdoors. Like that's just like very weird for us. So it's like, okay, first it's outdoor, there might be rain. We are under a tent. There's not a lot of audience, and it's on a keyboard. And so they were like pretty pissed about that. But as as a planner, it's like I'm really trying, but I hear them, and then it's like each time it gets better and better. But yes, it is like understanding both perspective, like being like, okay, I want to provide the performer the best, but at the same time, there is a budget, there is steps to getting that. And so in that instance, I had to deal with some of the piano faculty um, at Jacobs, and it was very chaotic um, through the process of them feeling like they're heard because their students, they want their students to be um, in this event, and then some weren't. And then they were like, why are MTNA deciding who gets to be on this event? So there was like a lot of communication, a lot of like stepping down, being humble, and being like, like this is not about you. This is not a personal attack on you. It's just, just a lot of that. And so it's about like listening and just again being like servants, like serving, not like I'm doing it for me, but I'm serving you guys. Yeah.
As we're ending this podcast episode, I wanted to touch one last thing with you, because being a leader requires connections, right? And you're able to do that with so many students and teachers from other schools.
Mhm.
How do you do that?
Um, yeah, connection is so important, like networking. I think for me, like my advice would be emails without emails or even texts without asking anything. Like just sending a text. Like when you think about them, don't be like, okay, I thought about my professor today because I was working on a passage, but like actually reaching out and just sending them a text without thinking that they would respond to you. Don't send a text or email saying thinking that I need them to respond. If they don't respond, that's fine. Like just letting them know like, hey, you're on my mind. I thought of you. Like that is the first um basic way of just keeping a network, keeping connection that way, without wanting anything in return. The second way I think is like if you joined a Zoom meeting, like a Zoom event, and you really, really like the speaker and you think you're really inspired, like sending them a thank you note or actively reaching out, not being not afraid of them rejecting you. And most of the time, like 99% of the time, they will respond to you and want to, they would appreciate it. Like it's very rare that like you send a nice note and they don't send anything back, because they joined this Zoom podcast or this like Zoom meeting or event, knowing that people are going to reach out to them and they want to help. So building that connection that way. No, so to like the most basic, like to keep a connection or keep a network, is if you think about them on a daily basis, or if you suddenly think about like one of your professors when you're practicing, then you can just shoot them a text or shoot them an email. But these emails and texts is you just saying, hey, like I thought of you, and not asking for anything in return. So that's the most like genuine thing. And like they don't need to respond. Like if you don't get a response, it's fine. Like you're just letting them know. Or even a friend, you can do that. And you never know what that might lead you. Or the second thing is, if you join an event, a Zoom event, or even in-person event for next year, and you really feel inspired by the speaker, um, and you maybe you didn't have time to like speak with them afterwards, then just shoot them an email. Like usually, like I would say like very high chance, like maybe 1% they wouldn't reply, but most of the time they do, because they go into these events to talk knowing that people are going to contact them. or even going to conferences and going to some of their talks, like not just getting their number or not just getting their email and putting it aside for one day when you need them, you like contact. No, don't do that. Like actually thank them for their time and like say, you know, I really appreciate this, because you never know that like you might need them down the line. And it would be really rude for you to be like, hey, I saw you doing this years ago and now I need you. So like do this for me. Like I think that would be rude. But it's not like unknown that if you do that, they won't say yes. So I think just doing those things, and again, like just connecting, being vulnerable, like actually wanting to catch up with them, um, not for purpose, not for your own purpose, but just to connect. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that so useful. But also, like as you're getting older, you're collecting a lot of connections. And
Yeah.
sometimes I myself feel, oh my gosh, so many people, right? And some of them I haven't spoken for years, but sometimes a simple hello really like
Mhm.
just juices up the connection again. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and you never know, the other side um, actually wants to know how you are.
Mhm.
I've sent emails to several of my professors just telling them, oh hey, I have concerts. If you would
Mhm.
like to listen in, come in. And some of them can make it, but they wish me great success, and
Yeah.
they said keep me updated.
Mhm.
So it's really like natural. Anything that you want to share with them, I'm pretty sure that they're not going to be bugged out, unless you're like listing, yo, I won this competition, hey, I did this and all that,
Yeah. No.
like
Bad.
a ego booster. I'm here. But it's just like simple things, right? I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I got a job here, and I really want to thank you for your
Yeah.
teaching time back then. So it's
Right.
like things that are true. You're not faking these emotions, things
Right.
that how they helped shape your life. And I
Mhm.
think they feel really appreciative because that was their mission when you were their student,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they feel really great that their former student is able to go somewhere and make some success.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so really thank you, Rachel, for being here and sharing all of this wonderful knowledge and experiences with Jeremy and me. It's it's been a pleasure having you, and I have actually learned some key points from you, Leader Rachel here.
Well,
And
thank you so much for having
yeah, I'm pretty sure, like as you were saying, like networking connections, our listeners here might want to connect with you. So why don't if you want to, you can. I'll put it on the description. But if
me.
you want to say your, social, like Instagram or whatnot, you can say it on this podcast too.
Yeah, no, like if you guys want to like ask me any questions or just like reach out, you can like contact me by email or Facebook. That works well. And then Alex could just put it on the description.
Yeah, and if you can't find any of that, just contact me or Jeremy. We'll just send you the information.
Mhm.
But if this is the end of the podcast episode for self-awareness for strong leadership. And thanks for following and listening in. I'm hoping you all are, getting some insight, especially for today. You may be a future leader of the future generation. So if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We need followers, because the more you follow, there's gonna be other people wanting to follow us too and gain some insight. We create this podcast not for ourselves really. This is like sharing valuable experiences and knowledge with you all, because Jeremy and I believe that when you help others,
Mhm.
everyone gets to help the other people. So it's like a domino effect. Um,
Yeah.
Try not to for me, I try not to like hold everything in, because there's no point of that, right? Just because you know something and then the others people don't, what's the point of that? So YouTube, like and subscribe. And our podcast platforms are on Apple, Spotify, and Google. Give us a follow. Thank you again, Rachel. And we wish you the best of success in your leadership, in your piano performances and pedagogy in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everyone.